Hey, dude. So I'll add some of the thoughts I have on it. I know when I was new, I struggled with this appointment because I would say I talked to them about payment protection, or whatever, and it was always like towards the end of the appointment, and it kind of came after term was too expensive, or they were too old and sick for whole life, or like this is what they qualified for kind of deal. And what I learned to do was to talk to them before we even covered any concept of any product at all. Is I would get the wife to agree that she was going to have to move, whether downsize, move in with family, kids, whatever, assisted living, whatever it is. And in this case, with the age gap like it is, there's no question that statistically he's going to die first, like 99% of the time. So I don't have a conversation about them staying. The entire conversation is, if he were to die yesterday, I assume you couldn't stay here. You would have to move or downsize or figure out what to do, would be my guess. And I'm assuming you don't want to run from the funeral home to the real estate office. And as you know, most people talk about taking a couple years before making any rash financial decisions. So what most of my clients do, instead of covering the whole mortgage at $150,000, which you're welcome to do, my boss would be fired up out of his mind. But the reality is, that's going to be a mortgage payment to cover the whole thing at $72,000. So what I always recommend, and what all my clients do, is they make sure they get enough coverage to make sure the bill is paid for like a year or two. That way you don't have to make any financial decisions after he dies. You can figure out what you're going to do with life, what that looks like, without having to worry about where you're going to move, because you're going to have enough of a mess to deal with. Does that make sense? And I get them to agree with that concept fully. Like, not kind of, sort of, maybe, but like, hey, if without his income, she doesn't have a choice but to move. When they say that, and then I talk about how bad that is, like, do you really want to have to move or be foreclosed on, or move in with your kids or downsize, like a couple weeks later, 6 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And hence from the funeral home to the real estate office comment I make in every one of those appointments, because no one's going to want to deal with that kind of financial mess immediately after someone dies. And when I grill them on what life looks like without, and when they tell me how it's going to look, and I only assume, I don't ask if they want to stay, I only assume they're going to have to move. And based on the financials, they always have to move. And even if it's something like, hey, if you guys are anything like my family, I assume it takes both incomes to take care of this house and all the bills, correct? They all say yes to that. So if you subtract one person's income, by default, they just said they can't stay without both. So I force the conversation there. And this is like in the first 5 minutes in the house. Then and only then will I go to product and qualification, all that. I go all in selling the concept first. So work on that. I'm going to post, there's a million trainings on it. That's a short version of it. I'm going to post a video. I did like a 15-minute video on it. I don't know, maybe last year at corporate I cut. I'll post that. I think Mickey has one. I did a call with Mark. There's a few of them out there. I'll post a couple links. Just study that, man. It's all in the delivery and all in selling the concept hard based on them having to move. So hope that helps, dude. Anybody else? I think I'd love to hear some feedback. Mendenhall, I know you're here, dude. Would love to hear your input on it. Thanks, bro.